This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth, and in case you guys haven't heard the good news, check this out. Omicron expert says we'll have our normal lives back in just 2 months. Get ready to pop the champagne, everybody. The Omicron variant of the coronavirus will, in effect, wipe out all the other mutations of the virus, and people across the world will have our normal lives back in just 2 months, according to Denmark's chief epidemiologist. Isn't it funny, guys, how we can even have a term like Omicron expert when this whole mutation of the virus came out in South Africa on November 24th, 2021. That's like 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks ago, we already have so-called Omicron experts who say we're going to be back to normal in just 2 months. And of course, that directly contradicts everything I've been saying for the last 20 months. That not that this is going to go back to normal anytime soon, but this is never going to get back to normal. This is it. This is the launching of the New World Order. This is not going to get back to so-called normal. We are now in a post-COVID-19 84 world. And as I've always been saying, it's not just about, 2 months, or it's eventually going to be about 2 jabs per year. I've been saying for a long time, get ready for booster shots for life every 6 months. And now we're starting to see them actually say these things in the mainstream, where we see here, we can't vaccinate the planet every 6 months, says a COVID-19 vaccine creator. And this is already peppering its way into the mainstream news. This idea that I was talking about a long time ago. And remember, that's how it always goes, In the beginning with the vaccine mandates, it was, no, we're not going to do that. There won't be any vaccine mandates. Even Trudeau said, no, there won't be any of that. And then eventually the narrative shifted to, well, maybe we should start looking at the logistics, and possibly maybe we should start thinking about and talking about the possibility that we may have to look at something like that. And then all of a sudden, not much longer later, it was like, these are the rules now. Mandatory vaccines for you, or you don't get to go to work, or you don't get to have access to society. And that's how these incremental moves have always gone. And so now we're at the stage with this. We can't vaccinate the planet every 6 months, so they're putting it already into the minds of the masses, getting us ready for what we know is coming. Andrew Pollard, one of the creators of Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 84 vaccine, has said that giving people booster shots twice a year is not sustainable. So it's not that, this is something we can't do because it's unethical, or, it's highly experimental. No, it's because we're not quite efficient enough yet. It's not sustainable, and essentially we got to start banging out these a little better. Speaking to UK newspaper The Telegram, in an interview published Tuesday, Pollard said, we can't vaccinate the planet every 6 months yet, I would add. Pollard, who also heads up the UK's Joint Committee on Vaccine and Immunisation, stressed the need to target the vulnerable going forward, rather than just administering doses to everybody over the age of 12. More data is needed to ascertain whether, when, and how often those are vulnerable will be needing these doses. The scientists cast doubts on the necessity of a 4th COVID-19 vaccine dose, saying further evidence is needed here before this campaign can begin. And I will remind you guys, we're like a year into the launching of this global inoculation program, and everybody's already openly talking about 4th vaccines. It used to be, take 1 to flatten the curve to end this thing. And then it was like, well, take 2, and then take 3, then take 4. And then, well, we just got to get up to 90%. 90% of you's got to take it. And then guess what? We're hitting that. And guess what they did? They shut everything down for even all the 90%. Are these people catching on yet that they are being duped, that they are being coerced? This is why I put this video out yesterday. Wake up. Here we are, being coerced to conform, and mass formation psychosis is how they do it. And indeed, we are under mass formation psychosis, which is reaching peak level insanity on both sides of the COVID-19 84 political spectrum, because we are now seeing stuff like this. Australian man self-mutilates after ranting against COVID, self-immolates after ranting against COVID vaccines. An Australian man was critically injured after he doused himself in gasoline and lit himself on fire in public on New Year's Day after ranting against COVID vaccines, against the, says the local reports. Yeah, it goes on to say here the guy was, poured gasoline on himself and all over his car. It was done on purpose. He was screaming about the mandates. He was screaming no vax ID and no, while he was throwing books, and literally drove him to the point of madness enough to light himself on fire. And as I said, this is by design, and it goes on both sides of the COVID-19 84 spectrum, where on one side you have people who are completely insane, quadruple vaxxed, natural immunity, but still wearing double masks and visors and alcohol and screaming at random strangers for not wearing a mask. That is a crazy person. That's somebody who has been abused by the television programming, by the brainwashing, which they don't understand is even taking place. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, you have the people who are aware of the tyrannical Big Brother Orwellian nightmare that is being systematically and incrementally set up here. And some of them can't quite keep it together, and they lose it. And this, quite shockingly, is not the first time I've seen this. In fact, this is the second time. And the first time I saw this was with someone I even knew. I don't know if you guys remember when I covered this. Peak panic. Toronto man ends his own life because of fears of the COVID-19 84 pandemic. It's a sad and tragic, and look, this was published March 19th, 2020, guys. I put this out on March 19th, 2020. In a sad and tragic turn of events, Toronto-based activist Derek Soberall committed suicide due to overwhelming fears of the COVID-19 pandemic. The mainstream media's coverage of this event has caused widespread panic, leading to a run on toilet paper and panic food buying. Remember, this is March of 2020. But there's another aspect to this as well. There's a great deal of misinformation online that has also caused unnecessary panic, making it difficult for some to separate fiction from reality. In this video, Dan Dix of Press for Truth covers the shocking news that someone he once knew ended up taking their life because fear got the best of him. Rest in peace, Derek Soberall. And indeed, it was a tragic turn of events that he became so enthralled with the fact that this Big Brother Orwellian nightmare is starting to come to fruition, that he felt it was just best to leave this place. Well, I admire the people who want to stay and fight. I admire those guys who are willing to take this on and who are not even going to flee their country and just go somewhere else, because this is a global agenda. We have to stand up and fight this thing now, which is why I really appreciate people like this. And check out this. I don't know if you've heard about this. Why I resigned from the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And this is coming from Tara Hanley of Speaking Freely on this blog here titled Speaking Freely. And this is quite the exodus, guys. Check this out. For months now, I've been getting complaints about the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, where I've worked as a TV and radio producer and on occasion on-air columnist for much of the past decade. People want to know why, for example, non-binary Filipinos concerned about a lack of LGBT terms in a taglog is an editorial priority for CBC when local issues of broad concern go unreported. Or why our pop culture's radio show's coverage of the Dave Chappelle Netflix special failed to include any of the legions of fans or comics that did not find it offensive. Or why, exactly, taxpayers should be funding articles that scold Canadians for using words such as brainstorm and lame. Everyone asks the same thing. What is going on at the CBC? Well, when I started at the National Public Broadcaster in 2013, the network produced some of the best journalism in the country. By the time I resigned last month, it embodied some of the worst trends in mainstream media. In a short period of time, the CBC went from being a trusted source of news to churning out clickbait that reads like a parody of the student press. Those of us on the inside know just how swiftly and how dramatically the politics of the public broadcaster have shifted. It used to be that I was one of the furthest to the left in any newsroom, occasionally causing strain in story meetings with my views on issues like the housing crisis. I'm now easily the most conservative, frequently sparking tension by questioning identity politics. This happened in the span of about 18 months. My own politics did not change. To work at the CBC in the current climate is to embrace cognitive dissonance and to abandon journalistic integrity. It is to sign on enthusiastically to a radical political agenda that originated on Ivy League campuses in the United States and spread through American social media platforms that monetize outrage and stoke societal divisions. It is to pretend that the woke worldview is near universal, even if it is far from popular with those of you with those you know and speak to and interview and read. To work at the CBC now is to accept the idea that race is the most significant thing about a person, and that some races are more relevant to the public conversation than others. It is in my newsroom to fill out racial profile forms for every guest you book, to actively book more people of some races and less of others. To work at the CBC is to submit to job interviews that are not about qualifications or experience, but instead demand the parroting of orthodoxies and the demonstration of fealty to dogma. It is to become less adversarial to government and corporations and more hostile to ordinary people with ideas that Twitter doesn't like. And, I'm certainly lumped into that category. I remember I had my Twitter suspended for a couple of weeks once, literally because I said a man is not a woman. And I had it suspended for 2 weeks for that. It is to endlessly document microaggressions but pay little attention to evictions, to spotlight companies' political platitudes but have little interest in wages or working conditions. It's to allow sweeping societal changes like lockdowns, vaccine mandates, and school closures to roll out with little debate. To see billionaires amass extraordinary wealth and bureaucrats amass enormous power with little scrutiny. And to watch the most vulnerable among us die of drug overdoses with little comment. It is to consent to the idea that a growing list of subjects are off the table, that dialogue itself can be harmful, that the big issues of our time are all already settled. This girl is nailing it, how they're weaponizing language. It's just, censorship galore. This is just how it is. This is like an inside whistleblower moment. It is to capitulate to certainty, to shut down critical thinking, to stamp out curiosity, to keep one's mouth shut, to not ask questions, to not rock the boat. This while the world burns. How could good journalism possibly be done under such conditions? How could any of this possibly be healthy for society? All of this raises larger questions about the direction that North America is headed, questions about this moment we are living through, and its impact on the body politics, on class divisions, and economics, economic inequality, on education, on mental health, on literature and comedy, science, liberalism, and democracy. These questions keep me up at night. I can no longer push them down. I will no longer hold them back. This Substack is an attempt to find some answers. Bravo, Tara Henley, you brave person who is at the expense of your paycheck willing to stand up for your principles and do what you know is right. And especially when you're surrounded by a team and a sea of people who say the exact opposite, we need more brave people like that in this world to stand up, take a stand, say, no, this is nonsense, this is crazy. What the heck is everybody doing? And then to counter the propaganda. And, as we continue to do that, they will continue with their censorship campaigns. They will continue to try to take me down, my various platforms that I'm on, which is, again, why I like to spread myself onto as many platforms as possible to kind of divergify my video sharing and social media platform portfolio, so to speak. So knowing how, the censorship that's going on over at Twitter and hearing that, guys like Joe Rogan just hopped on there as a hedge against censorship, I decided why not? Let's get her done. Let's get a Getter account, gettr.com. Here's mine, guys. I set this up last night. If you're on here, Be sure to follow me. I'll put a link in the description. And if you're not, check it out. I mean, it operates a lot like Twitter. It's pretty, it's easy to use, and they're apparently not going to censor voices such as mine. Which is why I'm kind of gonna check it out today, and I encourage you guys to check it out as well. Once again, if you're on there, give me a follow. If you're not, maybe sign up and follow me especially if you think I might be terminated from Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or all the other major tech conglomerates who have a tight grip of control on information. If I get shut down from them, or God forbid, my website, there are other places you are going to be able to find me, and I'm going to talk about that in a very important video coming out tomorrow, guys. But until then, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to check us out here at pressfortruth.ca/donate. If you appreciate my efforts to continuously bring you this information here, you can do a PayPal one-time donation. You can contribute some Bitcoin by clicking on that banner there. If you're on Patreon, you become a patron of mine by clicking there. I do accept other cryptocurrencies. You can click there for that. Here, you can sign up for a monthly recurring contribution that doesn't pay out to a third party like Patreon. It just goes directly to me. Also, if you want to send directly to me, you can do an e-transfer to dan@pressfortruth.ca, or if you like to keep it old school, we do cash, checks, equipment, or simply just words of encouragement that can all be sent to my P.O. box right here. Links for all that are located in the description below. And I just want to, on this whole peak panic note, let you guys know, we really need to maintain our sanity, our health, physically and spiritually, and we need to help each other moving forward, guys. There are some what I call wounded soldiers in the information war who are too far gone to be helped. These are the Karens who are multi-masked and double-vaxxed and still scream at you for not having a mask. Move on to the next one. They've watched far too much television. There might be somebody else out there who you can explain what's truly going on here, that this is not agenda. This isn't the government who's seeking out to help you here and is concerned with your health. There's a much larger agenda of control at play here. And those of us who can see it are speaking out, and I want to encourage more people who can see it to speak out. And even if you don't want to speak out, you can encourage and help people who do, like myself here at Press for Truth, guys. So if you do appreciate my efforts to do this, please click that thumbs up button, share this video with your friends and your family that need to hear it the most. Don't forget to check me out here at pressfortruth.ca/donate. If you do appreciate my efforts to do all this work to counter the propaganda and the mainstream narrative. And that's all for today, guys. I want to thank you again for tuning in. Stay tuned. We're going to have more video reports coming soon. This is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth. We all want truth. The truth will set you free.